She told me she was cheating, right before I jumped from 13,000 feet. The door was open. The wind was screaming. And her words? They hit harder than gravity. No tears. No fight. Just a smile and silence. I didn't scream on the way down. But when I landed, everything changed. And she? She had no idea what was coming next. We were 30 minutes into the sky, climbing through clouds, when I realized she hadn't smiled once. The private skydiving package was my idea. Her bucket list. Our anniversary. I wanted to make it memorable. And it would be. Just not the way I thought. The cabin buzzed with adrenaline. The engines roar. The scent of parachute nylon. The instructor's voice somewhere behind us explaining hand signals, exit posture, wind drift. I wasn't listening. I was watching her. Madeline sat across from me in the narrow cabin, helmet strapped, goggles perched, lips pressed thin like she was holding something in. Not nerves. Not excitement. Regret. It was supposed to be a celebration. 10 years. A new chapter. I'd booked the jump, the photos, the dinner, even the champagne chilling at home. All to say one thing. I still choose you. But she wouldn't even look at me. Hey, I said, leaning forward, my voice raised over the engine. You okay? She nodded. Once. Eyes didn't meet mine. I tried to smile. Scared. She shook her head. No. The instructor gave us the signal. 2 minutes to jump. My heart started racing, not from fear, but from that feeling you get before a storm. The air changes. The silence thickens. And something inside you knows you're not ready. I reached out and took her hand. It was cold. She flinched. Then she leaned in close, so close I could smell her perfume, and whispered, "By the time you land, I'll be gone." I blinked. What? She didn't repeat it. She just added one more thing. I'm seeing someone else. I don't want this anymore. And then she let go of my hand, stepped back, and gave a little wave like she was saying goodbye to a stranger at a bus station. I didn't answer. Didn't yell. I turned, as instructed, and shuffled to the edge of the open door. 30 seconds. The sky was wide. Blue. Empty. I looked back once. She didn't flinch. Didn't move. I jumped. The wind hit like a slap. Every thought I had, every breath, every ounce of clarity, all of it got ripped away the second I fell. But one thing stayed with me. Her words. By the time you land, I'll be gone. It repeated in my head louder than the wind. Louder than gravity. Louder than the earth rushing up to meet me. The sky had never felt so empty. I didn't scream. Didn't cry. Didn't even blink. I just fell. Hands folded across my chest, like a man being lowered into a coffin. The silence was thunder. The ground came fast, but not fast enough. She cheated. And she told me in the air, at the edge of everything, where I had nowhere to go but down. And she? She just stayed. Like it was her way of escaping guilt without looking back. I was the one falling. But she was the one who let go first. The chute opened with a snap that jerked my spine straight, but the numbness stayed. I coasted over fields and rooftops, the instructor calling out something about angle and direction. I barely heard him. My eyes were locked on the world below, searching for her. Our car wouldn't be there. I already knew that. I landed with a thud that rattled my teeth. Grass cushioned my fall, but it didn't soften anything else. As the harness was unclipped and the chute packed away, I checked my phone. 2 messages. The first one, from her. Don't call. You'll understand eventually. The second, from my brother. Take it like a man. You always knew you weren't enough for her. I didn't reply. I didn't even blink. Instead, I sat down in the gravel beside the landing zone, helmet still on my lap, staring into the horizon like it might offer some kind of explanation. It didn't. The instructors buzzed around me, helping the next group get suited. Someone offered me water. I declined. I just watched the clouds. I didn't cry. Not because I was strong. Because I was hollow. 10 years. 10 years of building a life, only to find out it was already packed in someone else's suitcase. And the worst part? They weren't even hiding it anymore. She didn't wait until dinner. She didn't wait until we got home. She wanted me to know up there, in the air, so I couldn't say anything back. So she didn't have to hear what I'd say. So I'd be alone with it all. It wasn't just betrayal. It was design. Calculated. Cruel. I stared at the clouds until the sky turned gold with sunset, then blue again, and finally dimmed to a tired gray. No calls came. No messages. Just silence. And I embraced it. Because silence wasn't weakness anymore. It was my weapon. Tomorrow, I'd disappear. Not because I was broken. But because I was done playing their game, I didn't go home that night. I drove to a motel 2 towns over, checked in under my middle name, paid cash. No luggage, no plan. The guy at the counter asked, "How long you staying?" I said, "Until I stop waking up angry." He didn't ask another question. I sat on the edge of the bed with the parachute bag still in my trunk. My hands smelled like nylon and sweat. My phone buzzed once. A group message family thread. They were already laughing. Someone posted a meme. When she drops the truth from 13,000 feet. There were heart reacts. Even from my cousin Levi. And I realized then. They all knew. Not just about her leaving. About how she left. About when. About what she said. I wasn't betrayed in the sky. I was betrayed weeks before, in the planning. There was one photo that stuck with me. Posted that morning. Her. Sitting in the plane after I jumped. Smiling. No parachute on. Someone captioned it. She stayed grounded. He lost more than altitude. I turned off my phone. Not because I couldn't take it. Because I didn't need to see it. What was left to say? They had written the script. Directed the scene. Filmed the humiliation. Laughed over the credits. Now I was just the extra who showed up, thinking he had a role. The motel walls were thin. I could hear the guy next door watching a game show, cheering every answer. He shouted out letters like he believed the TV could hear him. I laid back, fully clothed. Stared at the ceiling fan. Didn't blink. Didn't breathe deep. Just waited. Waited for the part where pain would take shape. Where it would break through. Where it would pour out in sobs or curses or the kind of breakdown you see in movies. It never came. Only stillness. Only one thought. They've never seen what I become when I go quiet. At dawn, I left the room key on the dresser. Didn't check out. Drove to the edge of town. To an old gas station with a payphone I knew still worked. I called a friend from years back. One of the few who wasn't in the thread. A guy who owed me one from a favor I'd long since forgotten. "Still got room in that cabin?" I asked. He didn't hesitate. "You bringing anything?" "Just me." "That's enough." 2 days later, I was gone. No note. No forwarding address. No trail. Just silence. A space where I used to be. Let them think I was shattered. Let them think I was licking my wounds. Because I wasn't. I was sharpening something they couldn't see. And when I came back, if I came back, they'd never recognize what was standing in front of them. The cabin sat just outside Hollow Pines, 3 hours from anywhere you'd want to be. No cell signal. No internet. Just tall trees, creaking wood, and the sound of wind slipping through broken shingles. Perfect. I unpacked my life from the backseat of a borrowed truck. One duffel bag, a toolbox, a folder of documents I'd never meant to use, and a stack of legal envelopes I'd kept sealed for years. Inside the cabin, dust coated every surface. But the bones were solid. Like me, forgotten, weathered, but not broken. I didn't tell anyone where I'd gone. Not my parents. Not coworkers. And certainly not the people who thought skydiving was the punchline. They wanted to laugh? Let them. Because I wasn't gone. I was buried. On purpose. And the difference was everything. The first week, I said nothing. Didn't post. Didn't reply. Just watched from the shadows. I reactivated an old email. Made a new name. Clean. Untraceable. Then I started to build. She'd cleaned out our joint account the same night she let me fall through the sky. I'd expected that. What she didn't expect. I'd already moved most of it 2 weeks prior. Into a trust she didn't know existed. The house? Still in my name. The vehicles? Co-leased. Her apartment? Technically, mine. I hadn't done it out of paranoia. I did it because people show you who they are when they think you're secure. And I stopped feeling secure the day she started hiding her phone in the bathroom. From the cabin, I made calls. Quiet ones. To old friends. Former partners. One guy I'd pulled out of a tax audit 5 years ago who now owned a surveillance firm. No questions asked. Just favors called in. While she was sipping wine with her new lover and enjoying a narrative they thought they controlled, I was assembling the board. Not of revenge. Of awareness. Of recovery. Of truth. Because this wasn't about getting even. It was about balance. It was about returning the weight they dropped on me. I printed one photo, just one. A screenshot of the moment she waved from the plane, smiling like she was tossing a match on everything I ever built. I taped it to the cabin wall, not as motivation, as a marker. This is where it started. Not the fall. The rise. 3 weeks passed. Not a single post from me. Not a sighting. Not a rumor. Just absence. And that's when they started to notice. The first message wasn't from her. It was from her sister. Hey, just checking. Are you okay? No concern. Just curiosity. The kind that crawls in when silence stretches too long. I didn't reply. An hour later, another ping. You good? Thought you might have said something by now. Still nothing. The world they built ran on noise. On commentary. On performative grief. Fake tears, curated apologies. But when I vanished, they had no script. A day later, her new boyfriend posted a story. Him. Her. Champagne flutes clinking. But the caption was shaky. Forced. No regrets. No looking back. You only write that when you were looking back. You only toast to no regrets when regrets creeping in through the cracks. I spent my mornings walking the pine trails behind the cabin. Old boots. Warm coffee. The sound of my breath in the cold. No music. No distractions. Just silence. It didn't hurt anymore. It clarified. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't bending myself to fit inside someone else's idea of me. I wasn't shrinking to keep peace. I wasn't explaining my worth. I just was. At night, I mapped their circle, not with vengeance in mind, but precision. Every friend who laughed. Every family member who shared the meme. Every name that clapped for the joke before realizing I'd gone completely still. They weren't enemies. They were background noise. People who only knew how to echo what others said. And now, they had nothing to echo. On week 4, she finally broke. A private number rang once, then twice. Voicemail. I listened. Her voice was soft, almost mechanical. I didn't expect silence. I thought you'd at least say something. Be mad. React. But this? It's weird. Weird? She dropped a bomb at 13,000 feet and called my silence weird? That told me everything I needed to know. She hadn't just moved on. She thought she won. She believed I'd crash without the drama, that I'd spiral without her noise. But some people don't need applause. Some people build in the quiet. By the end of that week, 3 more people had reached out. One accidentally sent me a laughing emoji in the thread again, then unsent it. I watched their discomfort build. They expected broken. I gave them still. And in that stillness, they began to unravel. Because no one fears a scream. They fear the one who doesn't need to speak at all. The first thing I did was pull up the joint insurance policies. I still had access, of course I did. She never thought to lock me out. Her name sat neatly beside mine, signature and all. I didn't touch the coverage. Didn't cancel. Didn't warn her. I just filed a silent claim to split the policies. Legally. Precisely. Next came the titles, cars, furniture, electronics. The couch she was now posting photos on? Still registered to me. The vacation refund she bragged about getting? Traced to my card. Every thread they thought they pulled clean? Still tangled in my name. I didn't do anything dramatic. Didn't seize or freeze. I just started documenting. Quietly. Timestamped. Location verified. I requested statements. Exported digital receipts. Pulled metadata off photos she posted, showing her in apartments I paid for, wearing jewelry from accounts she thought I'd forgotten about. The silence was my courtroom now. And I was building a case. Not to humiliate. To clarify. To lay bare the truth they thought would stay buried under the weight of laughter. One night, I opened a folder I hadn't touched in 2 years. It was full of overlooked assets. Stocks I bought early and never touched. Forgotten dividends. I moved them. Not into a personal account. Into a trust. Quiet. Sealed. Irrevocable. Beneficiary? Not her. Not family. Just a foundation. One she didn't know existed. One I'd named after my mother. She always told me. Protect your peace, even if no one claps for it. So I did. And the applause? Still silence. But I could feel the echo growing. A friend of hers posted a vague tweet. Some people play dead just to watch the funeral. It got a few likes. Then a reply. Yeah, and some of us came dressed for a burial, not a resurrection. They thought they were clever. They didn't know I was watching. I never commented. Never messaged. Never reminded anyone I was there. Because I wasn't. Not in the way they remembered. The man they betrayed? Gone. What stood in his place was something they had no name for. Something that didn't need to shout to be heard. By the end of that month, she posted a reel with her new boyfriend, road trip energy, and some fake candid smiles. But the view count was low. No buzz. No attention. The story was losing air. Without me, they had no villain. Just each other. And that was far worse. It started with a denial. A bill, unpaid. A balance, frozen. A rental agreement, quietly voided. She posted a story that morning, a flat lay of her breakfast, captioned "Grind never stops." The coffee cup had a tiny crack running through it. I stared at it longer than I should have. Something about it felt symbolic. Or maybe I just knew what was coming. By noon, she was tagged in a comment by her landlord. "Please respond to our last 3 emails. Your keys are overdue." I didn't comment, didn't share, but I saved the screenshot. Because the mirror was cracking, and not even her filters could blur it. That night, my brother sent a message. Not to apologize. Not to ask if I was alive. Just, "You're playing a dangerous game." No name. No punctuation. I deleted it without reading it twice. If they thought this was a game, it only proved how much they underestimated me. This wasn't checkers. This was erosion. And erosion never roars, it whispers. The next post from her boyfriend was more muted. No filters. Just him sitting on a patio, glass of wine, staring into the distance. Caption: "We don't talk about the ones who disappear, but they always return different." His comment section was half bots, half silence. She didn't like the post. She didn't even tag him that week. Something was fraying. Something beneath the surface. And I wasn't even near them. That's what terrified them most. One morning, she messaged me again. This time it was short. "Can we talk?" I didn't answer. She followed up an hour later. "It's not what you think. I never meant for it to go like that." Then why did it? I wanted to ask, but I didn't. Instead, I turned off notifications. Not out of anger. Not to ignore. I just didn't need her words anymore. The world she built without me was hollowing. Not because I was sabotaging it. Because it was never built to stand. I checked one last thing that day. Our old vacation home. It had quietly transferred back to my name 2 weeks ago. She hadn't noticed. She posted a throwback photo of us there once. Captioned "Best days. Always." Now it belonged to me again. But I wouldn't go there. Some places deserve to be empty. I didn't know when they'd stop pretending. But I knew it was close. The jokes had slowed. The likes had faded. Even her stories had grown shorter, less curated. The airbrush perfection started to give way to vague quotes and close-up shots of coffee cups instead of her face. Silence wasn't just something I chose. It was something they started to fear. I returned to town for the first time after 39 days. Not to see them. Not to be seen. I came for paperwork, legal updates, bank transitions, the last signatures for assets I'd recovered behind the scenes. The clerk at the bank recognized me. Her eyes widened slightly, but she didn't say anything. Just handed me the clipboard and whispered, "They've been talking." I nodded once. That's all I needed. On my way out, I passed the cafe we used to frequent. The one where she used to hold my hand across the table while secretly texting someone else with the other. I didn't look inside, but I noticed something new. The corner booth, ours, was empty. Still reserved. Still lit by warm light. But no one sat there. Like the space remembered me, even if she didn't. Later that night, a photo popped up in a community group. Her, at the market. Standing alone. Eyes unfocused. Hair pulled back carelessly. She was holding a basket, staring at apples like she didn't know what she was doing there. The caption wasn't cruel. Just simple. "Saw her today. She didn't look like herself." That's what happens when your identity is built on reactions. Remove the reaction, and the performance collapses. She had lost her favorite character, me. And now, the spotlight just made her shadow feel bigger. My brother messaged again. "Just talk to her. She's been quiet too." I almost laughed. They built the noise machine. They turned humiliation into entertainment. And now, when the silence closed in, they wanted me to break it for them? No, this silence wasn't punishment. It was protection. Mine. That weekend, I walked along the harbor just before sunrise. Same path she and I once walked during better days. I passed a couple holding hands, laughing about something only they understood. I didn't envy them. I didn't ache. I just felt still, because I had nothing left to lose. And that's when you become dangerous. It came from the least likely place. A voice message. From her cousin, Elena. We had spoken maybe 3 times in the last 5 years. Always polite, always distant. She never took sides. Never got involved. But that night, at 2:14 a.m., her name lit up my inbox. I didn't open it right away. Let it sit there for hours. By mid-morning, curiosity won. I pressed play. Her voice was hushed, like she was hiding in a bathroom or under a blanket. "I can't keep watching this. I don't even know why I'm sending this. Maybe because I thought you deserved to hear it from someone." The skydive? That wasn't her idea. Silence. Then, it was Mason's. My brother. He told her it'd be poetic. Like a clean break. Said you were already halfway gone, so it wouldn't matter. They laughed about it. At a barbecue. I was there. She said, maybe I'll tell him while he's floating. And he said, nah, say it before he jumps. Give him a reason to scream. They joked. Like it was a movie. My thumb hovered over pause. But I didn't stop. I didn't say anything because I didn't know how. But now, she's unraveling. And Mason? He's panicking. You being quiet? It's scaring them more than if you'd shown up with a lawyer. They don't know what to do without your reaction. That's why I'm sending this. Do whatever you want with it. Just know you weren't crazy. The message ended there. No apology. No attempt at redemption. Just facts. Spoken in a whisper. But they echoed like thunder. Mason, my own brother. The one who joked that day on the family thread. The one who raised a toast when I hit the ground. He wasn't just a bystander. He'd orchestrated it. Framed it. Directed the scene. I stared at the voice memo for a long time. Not because it surprised me, but because it confirmed what I'd already suspected. And because part of me, deep down, still wanted to be wrong. Still wanted it to just be her mistake. But now I knew. It wasn't just betrayal. It was a collaboration. A full cast production. And I'd been the unsuspecting star of their finale. I poured a drink. Not out of celebration. Not out of pain. But as a quiet toast. To the version of me they thought would break. To the silence they tried to fill with their laughter. To the storm they never saw building behind the stillness. I didn't respond to Elena. Didn't thank her. Didn't question it. Didn't forward the message to anyone. Instead, I made a copy. Saved it on 3 drives. One encrypted, one mailed to a lawyer I hadn't spoken to since my early 30s, and one hidden under the floorboards of the cabin. Because I didn't need the truth to go viral. I just needed it to survive. Mason was the kind of man who never saw the storm until his shoes were soaked. He built his life on proximity, staying close to power, mimicking confidence, riding momentum. But the thing about momentum? It only works when the ground doesn't shift. And I'd been shifting the ground beneath him for weeks. Quietly. The company he and I co-founded, I still had shares. Minor ones. Diluted. Dusty on paper. But there was a clause. Buried deep in the partnership agreement. Tucked beneath the legal jargon neither of us had looked at in years. If any co-founder was found guilty of reputational harm tied to the brand's image, a forced buyout could be initiated. The only trigger? Proof. And Elena's voice memo was exactly that. The board meeting was scheduled for Thursday. I didn't attend. Didn't need to. I let my representative handle it. A man Mason had once ignored in the break room, thinking he was just another contract accountant. Now, he was reading the clause aloud, playing the voice memo through Bluetooth, and watching Mason's face drain of color. I received the update via email. Motion passed. Buyout initiated. Shares frozen pending review. No headlines. No drama. Just a quiet death sentence for his role. One he never saw coming because I never raised my voice. Later that night, I saw his post. Just a black square. No caption. No tags. People commented. Stay strong, bro. Whatever it is, you'll bounce back. We all fall sometimes. No one knew what happened. Not yet. But they felt it. And that's all I needed. A few hours later, her profile went dark too. No more champagne pics. No more road trips. Just a pause. A vacuum. As if the echo chamber they'd built finally ran out of things to bounce off of. At sunrise, I stood on the cabin porch with coffee in hand, watching the fog slide between the trees. Not triumphant. Not bitter. Just present. Because when you stop being part of their noise, you start hearing the clarity in your own silence. And mine had never been louder. It started with a silence of her own. No posts. No stories. Just absence. And unlike mine, hers wasn't deliberate. It was reactive. Frantic. As if she were waiting for someone, anyone, to hand her a script to read from again. But no one stepped in. Mason was quiet now. Their friends had distanced. Not out of malice, but discomfort. No one wants to be near someone when the mask starts slipping. They just watch. From a safe distance. A week later, her gym membership was revoked. Payment failure. She posted nothing. 2 days after that, someone noticed she no longer showed up at her usual cafe. The barista mentioned it in passing on a live stream. Yeah, she used to sit here, order oat lattes, always laughing too loud. Haven't seen her in weeks. The comments filled with speculation. But no answers. No explanations. Only questions and silence. Then came the email. Not from her. From her employer. A short, clinical message confirming her exit from the firm. No comment at this time regarding circumstances of her departure. I didn't leak anything. I didn't need to. She had tied her professional persona to a curated identity. And when that identity cracked, the facade took everything with it. But she still didn't reach out. Not with apologies. Not with excuses. Not even with anger. Just nothing. Because by then, she realized it wasn't me she needed to fear. It was the version of me she created and could no longer control. I did see her once. By accident. At the grocery store 2 towns over. She was in the canned goods aisle, sunglasses on, hoodie up, pushing a half-empty cart like she was waiting for the ground to swallow her. She didn't see me, but I watched her pause in front of the shelf of soup. Staring. Not moving. Like she forgot why she came. That image stayed with me longer than I expected. Not because it brought satisfaction, but because I finally saw it, the consequence of her own architecture collapsing. She wasn't crying. She wasn't broken. She was hollow. Later that night, I got a text from an unknown number. I didn't think it would matter. No name. No context. But I knew who it was. And I knew what she meant. She didn't think I would matter. That my silence would matter. That my absence would hold weight. But it did. Because I never tried to burn her down. I just stopped holding her up. The old group chat came back to life for the first time in months. Not with jokes. Not with taunts. Just confusion. Someone posted a link to a now-deleted video. One of her friends had tried to go viral again, reposting an old clip from that skydive day. She was mid-laugh in the frame, right before the door opened. And just as she leaned in to whisper something to me, the video froze. Caption? This didn't age well. The comments weren't kind this time. They weren't celebratory either. They were questioning. Wait, wasn't this the same guy who just bought out his brother? Isn't she the one who lost her job after that fundraiser thing? This guy disappeared and then somehow came back richer? One by one, the tide shifted. People weren't defending her anymore. They were dissecting her. I didn't respond. Didn't res air. Just watched. From the edge. Like I always had. That week, I met with an old client. One who hadn't taken my calls back when everything fell apart. No? He shook my hand 3 times in one meeting. I heard the rumors, he said. Didn't believe them back then. But I see you now. He didn't apologize. Didn't have to. He saw me. Really saw me. And that was enough. A former friend of Mason's reached out too. Said he felt terrible for how things were handled. That he didn't know the full story. I told him I wasn't looking for confessions. He said, still, it matters. Because I remember laughing when she pushed you. And I've thought about that every week since. It was strange. How quickly the laughs turn into echoes. How fast a joke becomes a weight. And how once the silence stays long enough, people start hearing themselves clearly. I walked by my old neighborhood that Friday. The same street where I used to wave at neighbors. Where they once nodded with sympathy and whispered behind closed doors. Now, they looked twice when they saw me. Held their gaze just a little longer. One of them even crossed the street. Hey, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. You doing okay these days? I nodded. Better than ever. And I meant it. The thing is, I never needed their guilt. Never needed them to look back and cringe. But they did. And that was enough. Because the truth has gravity. And now they couldn't walk past it without feeling the pull. It came as an envelope. No return address. Handwritten in a familiar curve, hers. I knew it was coming. That last-ditch effort. The attempt to reclaim civility, to rewrite the narrative one last time, to see if I could still be moved by sentiment. Inside was a single card. Off-white. Embossed. Heavy stock. You're invited. No smiley face. No explanation. Just a location, a time, and the signature I hadn't seen since the divorce decree. See. I stared at it for a while. Then placed it on the table beside the remains of breakfast. She hadn't messaged. Hadn't called. This wasn't reconciliation. This was a stage. A new play. She wanted me in the front row. I didn't respond. I just showed up. Not for her. For me. Because sometimes the final curtain call isn't about applause. It's about proof. The restaurant was upscale, of course. A place she'd once said was too minimalist for real conversation. Now, it was candlelight and curated wine lists. The table was set for 5. She sat at the center, flanked by Mason and 2 mutual acquaintances I barely remembered. The 5th chair, mine, sat untouched. Until I pulled it out. Their eyes followed me. No one spoke first. So I let silence introduce me. She smiled tight, polite, a performance of warmth. You came. I nodded once. No words. Let her fill the void. We thought, maybe it was time to talk. Mason wouldn't meet my eyes. He fiddled with his napkin, pretending not to be present. I picked up the menu. Didn't read it. Set it back down. Still nothing from me. She tried again. Everything's been complicated. The other two guests exchanged glances. You could see it in their posture. They didn't expect this kind of air. They expected a reunion. They didn't realize they were seated in the middle of a reckoning. We didn't handle things well, she added. No apology. Just the safest phrasing she could wrap around betrayal. I looked at her, finally, held her gaze, and then said, calm and quiet, "You didn't break me." It wasn't loud. It wasn't bitter. Just factual. She blinked like she'd been slapped with wind. Mason shifted. "We were hoping," she said, "that maybe you could stop pushing." Ah, so that's what this was. Not guilt. Not growth. Just fear. They felt the silence tightening, the ground trembling. And they wanted peace, not for healing, but for protection. I folded my napkin, set it gently beside the untouched silverware. "You made your choice at 13,000 feet. I stood. This dinner won't rewrite it." Then I left. No shouting. No payment. No drama. Just silence. The kind that follows a door closing that will never open again. The dinner became a rumor before dessert was even served. Someone messaged me the next morning. "Heard you walked out without touching your glass. Respect." Another added. She tried to smile through it. Didn't land. I didn't reply. Didn't need to. Because this wasn't about validation anymore. It was about closure. And I didn't need their permission for that. The cabin, once temporary, had started to feel like foundation. Not just wood and nails. It became clarity. The kind of place where silence didn't echo, it rested. I spent mornings on the porch with coffee, watching mist roll off the hills. Afternoons went to work, consultations, letters, ideas. I didn't chase. Didn't pitch. People came to me now. I rebuilt something small. A consultancy, quiet and deliberate. One client at a time. One solution at a time. No branding. No press. Just results. Built on my name. My terms. And no one else's permission. One day, a letter came. From a student. He'd watched a clipped interview of mine, one I never even knew had aired. His message was simple. "I saw the way you sat in that room and didn't flinch. I'm learning to do the same. Thank you." That was the moment it clicked. This wasn't just a recovery. This was legacy. Not in buildings, but in behavior. My silence hadn't just reclaimed peace. It had taught presence. A different kind of strength, one without noise. And people were listening. Not to my voice, but to my stillness. She messaged again. One final time. "I saw the article. I guess you're really doing it." There was no follow-up. No request to talk. No spin. Just a hollow note tossed into a space she no longer belonged in. I didn't answer. Not out of spite, but because there was nothing left to answer for. Legacy isn't about getting the last word. It's about becoming a sentence no one else can rewrite. The envelope arrived 6 months to the day since the jump. No name. Just a symbol, a red wax seal I hadn't seen since college. Inside was a gift certificate. One free solo jump. Valid anytime. No expiration. I knew who sent it. Didn't need the return address. Tobias, my old instructor. The man who taught me how to fall without fear. I stared at it for a long time, then booked the slot. No camera crew. No friends. Just me, a borrowed jumpsuit, and the open sky. The morning was clean. Blue sky. Bare wind. The same kind of quiet that used to scare me. Now, it felt like home. I boarded the plane in silence, just like before. But this time, no one followed me in with hidden plans or whispered confessions. No one stayed behind with a smug smile. No betrayal hidden in a parachute. Just me. And altitude. At 13,000 feet, I stood at the open door. Same wind. Same gravity. But everything else had changed. I didn't look back. Didn't think of her. Didn't replay the words. Instead, I jumped. And this time, I smiled on the way down. It wasn't just about falling. It was about choosing the fall. Owning it. Not being pushed. Not being tricked. Just deciding. The air caught me gently. The chute opened clean. The ground came up steady, soft, unafraid. I landed with both feet planted and no one cheering. No applause, no cameras, no cruel laughter. Only quiet. And it was perfect. Later, sitting on the field with my helmet off and the grass cool under my hands, I thought back to that day. to her voice in my ear, to the sound of betrayal carried on propellers and wind. And I realized something. She didn't break me that day. She freed me. Because the moment she let go, I learned how to hold myself. That night, I walked the quiet edge of the lake near the cabin. The stars reflected in the water like they had somewhere to be. And I whispered the phrase I'd never said out loud until now. Didn't I tell you? Just once. Not to her. Not to anyone. To myself. And then I left it there, on the wind. No closure required. No final message sent. No parting post. Just the truth. In the quiet. Exactly where it belonged.